What's up, family? Good morning. How y'all doing? It's your girl, your diva, and knowledge. Lady Mocha represent Mocha's Cafe de Padres. So I'm always serving you wisdom, knowledge, and spiritual awareness. Big ups to all of my subscribers. Again, I'm so grateful. I'm appreciative of y'all. To all my guys and to all my ladies, I still thank y'all for being a part of my platform, even though we may not always agree or have the same perspectives on things. I still appreciate y'all for still being mature enough to still follow me, even though we don't always agree on different things and we don't always share the same narratives. And I appreciate y'all for still being a part of the platform on the strength of that. So, nevertheless, I want to definitely get into today's topic. I know y'all been hearing all about it. It's been trending. Officer Former officer, well, might as well say officer because they were not able to terminate her due to her death. Former officer Vicky White, unfortunately, like many female officers, put herself in a very bad predicament. I'm sure if y'all haven't been hearing, it's been all over the news. They've been on a manhunt, they've been on a run for like 11 days, and it finally had came to a head. It caught up with them. Former correctional officer who helped the inmate escape more than a week ago, she fatally shot herself during a police pursuit in Indiana, which is where uh, Officer Vicky White and inmate Casey White was discovered. Now keep in mind, both of them have the same last name, but there's no relation at all. It's the typical inappropriate officer and inmate uh, relationship that happens a lot inside these correctional facilities. So, to add insult to injury, this woman was close to retiring. Matter of fact, rumor, I don't know how accurate it is, but they were stating that she almost, I think it was her last day or the day before her retirement. So she decides, after all of these years of being a former correctional officer, which I say is a big accomplishment because being a correctional officer um, is a very challenging career. Everyone cannot do it, especially women. Everybody's not gifted in this type of career because it is very stressful. You're constantly being challenged. And it's not one of those careers that's usually longevity. People quit. People quit but being correctional officers because, again, like I told all of y'all 1,000 times, and my A was from day one. Y'all been hearing all of my former correctional officer stories, so I know y'all tired of hearing them. But I've had a lot of people who recently subscribed, so I'm gonna be repeating the stuff over and over and over just to get my new subscribers on game, and put them on to what I used to do, as I was blogging, before I ended up resigning from being a correctional officer. But nevertheless, anybody who's been in this field for a very long time, that says something about your strength, that says something about your character, and that definitely says something about your integrity, because again, a lot of people do not last as a correctional officer for a very long time, and we know that corrections have a high turnover rate. It is because officers are consistently burnt out. If they're not burnt out, they're getting terminated over petty stuff, or they're getting terminated over you know major stuff. In an instance of fraternizing with inmates, it would be considered something major, or smuggling and contraband, drugs, cell phones. These are major offenses. And this is just one of them careers. It's very hard for people to stay consistent, because depending on where you work, you're going to constantly be short staffed. Corrections is constantly short staffed. Again, as I mentioned earlier, officers get burnt out, having to work so much excessive overtime, so they quit. Or, like I said, they get fired over mediocre stuff. You have a lot of these upper management, upper staff officers that abuse their authority. They have a personal issue with you. At some point in time, they're going to come together because it's that old-fashioned buddy system. It's a big system, so anytime you go against the grain, or you buck somebody, or you out somebody, you put upper management officer on blast, you become a threat. This is a buddy system that's already been well developed, especially if you're a rookie or if you're somebody where you don't have a whole lot of weight, you don't hold a high position, and you see things out of pocket, you see things out of alignment, and you go and address it. In a sense, it's like poking the bear, and the upper management, they're going to come together and look out for each other, because again, there was bonds and cliques and alliances already built and already established before you came there as an officer. So it's a lot of things you have to be mindful of. It's a very grimy career. A lot of the times, people who don't do corrections, officers are frowned upon, but just based on the fact that they are over inmates. So just the fact when you mention your correctional officer, people frown upon you, because automatically is this misconception that you're somebody who's overly authoritative. You're most likely mean to inmates. You're most likely you love to abuse your authority, by controlling inmates. So it's a misconception. Being an officer is that we abuse our privilege of being an authority. But the biggest issue that a lot of people don't understand, in the alignment of corrections, is officers that are more of a threat to other officers than inmates. Bottom line, a lot of people have this misconception that inmates, are more of a threat or more of a danger to officers, which is true. But the biggest threat is that you have upper management that's more of a threat to officers than inmates, because inmates don't have a lot of power to get an officer in trouble unless they're under the manipulation of inmates. Like I said earlier, you sneaking in contraband, you sneaking in cell phones and stuff like that. Now you give the inmate power. But as an officer, you can only be infiltrated by an inmate if you give them that power to do so. So you have control over that. But what a lot of officers don't have control over is when you are bucking the system, or you address certain things to the system and you don't comply, you start to come off as a threat. You start to come off as someone that they feel is gonna bring problems. You know what I mean? If you low key snitching and blowing the whistle, stuff like that, they got to get rid of you, and they will do that by any means necessary. So that's a whole nother subject for another time. But that was just to give y'all a lot of insight on, being a correctional officer has a lot of challenges. So for this woman to make it this far in the game and throw all of that away based on, having feelings for an inmate, it's just bananas to me. But I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. Again, I've done corrections for, 2.5 years. So I know exactly how females are easily able to be infiltrated. If you're not hip to the game, if you lack low self-esteem. So nevertheless, I know y'all been hearing about it, but I'm gonna put y'all up on game. For those of you who have not been keeping up with the story. Now this happened, well, I know the chase ended May 9th, but they had actually um been pursuing Officer White and inmate White since April 29th. So just to give y'all a brief summary, a national manhunt for a former corrections officer and Alabama inmate she helped to escape last month ended Monday after a police pursuit resulted in a crash in Indiana. The former officer fatally shot herself in the inmate surrender. The former officer, Vicky White, had been on a run with inmate Casey White, a murder suspect to whom she was not related, since April 29th, when they left the Lauderdale County Jail in Florence, Alabama, for a courthouse appointment that was later revealed to be a fabrication. The crash occurred in Evansville, Indiana, more than 200 miles north of the jail, after the authorities there heard that both of the Whites were in a vehicle nearby and began pursuing it. The search narrowed to the area when, hours earlier, a police officer on patrol spotted a Cadillac resembling one that surveillance video has shown the Whites entering. The car was seen in the parking lot of a motel where the pair had stayed for about a week. A car chase began when the Whites exited the motel, said at a news conference. Marshall's vehicle collided with their vehicle, causing it to roll over and crash. With the vehicle wrecked, Mr. White surrendered to the authorities, but Miss White shot herself in the head and subsequently died at a hospital. Upon surrendering, Mr. Wright referred to Miss White as his wife and said he did not shoot her. Mr. White told law enforcement officers that he had planned to engage in a shootout with police. Their plan was faulty and it failed. Once again, what was going through her mind, I have no idea. He said they were found with $29,000 in cash and 4 guns, including semi-automatic weapons and an AR-15. They also had several wigs in different colors. Sheriff Weddy said that they did not appear to be a reason Mr. White and Mrs. White had ended up in Evansville, adding that, according to Mr. White, they had been seeking a place to hide and plan their next move. Sheriff Singleton of Lauderdale said he was feeling pretty down after learning that Miss White, who was a widow, had no children, had died. When you have a family member that makes a bad choice, you know, you don't like them, but you still love them. She was family to us. And yes, so it hurts, according to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Singleton added that now he believed the pair had been in a romantic relationship and that Miss White was just as concerned about coming back and facing her family and her co-workers as she was the charges. It was unclear who was driving the vehicle that they were traveling in. Mrs. White disappeared with Mr. White on the morning of April 29th after she left the jail under the pretext of escorting him to the county courthouse a few blocks away for a mental health evaluation. As the jail's assistant director of correction is the second highest ranking officer, she was responsible for handling transportation for inmate appearances in court. Ms. White told a booking officer at the jail that after dropping off Mr. White, she intended to seek medical assistance for herself. That did not happen. Sheriff Singleton said at a news conference on May 1st, the premise for leaving the jail was all bogus, he said. Mrs. White's patrol vehicle was left at a shopping center in Florence where the pair switched vehicles. The vehicle they were in, a Ford SUV, was found abandoned along a rural road in Tennessee later the same day. Mrs. White had helped Mr. White flee the jail, though he initially said she might have been coerced or threatening to doing so. An arrest warrant was issued for her on the charge of permitting or facilitating an escape. A week later, charges of forgery and identity theft were added, stemming from the use of aliases to purchase the Ford SUV. At the time of his escape, Mr. White, 38, was awaiting trial on the fatal stabbing of a woman in 2015. Mr. White had already been serving a 75-year sentence for previous convictions, including 2 carjackings and multiple shootings. He was awaiting trial in the 2015 murder. Mrs. White and Mr. White have been in a relationship for at least 2 years, according to the sheriff, who said they met briefly in 2020 when Mr. White was in Lauderdale County for an arrangement before heading back to state prison. Mrs. White had recently decided to retire, and the escape occurred on her last day of work. Sheriff said it was unusual for someone her age, 56, to retire 4 years before her retired benefits would become available. So, as y'all can see, this was a very, very, very crazy situation, y'all. But this happens more frequently than we realize. I've seen many instances where not just female officers, nurses, caseworkers, in some cases attorneys, a lot of women that are involved in corrections in any shape or form, they can easily get mentally infiltrated in the minds of these inmates if they're not careful, and if they're not able to, separate their personal from their professional when it comes to dealing with these inmates. So nevertheless, for a woman to go this far, she had feelings for this inmate. She had feelings. And the fact that she was willing to jeopardize her career and her freedom, it just speaks volumes as to how much influence this man had over her. Or it also displays how low her self-esteem was, how low her self-worth was. And then corrections is not a career for women that are weak-minded. It's not a career for women that lack self-esteem. It's not a career for women who love attention from men. It's not a career for women who already don't have a man, who already don't have stability in their lives. If you're the type of woman you love attention, and you're lonely, I don't recommend getting this type of profession, because again, you're around men, the majority of the time of your career. We're talking about 12 to 16 hours. And we're not talking about just 2 days out the week. You're around these men every bit of maybe 5 to 6 days out of the week. You'll be lucky if you get a day off in this type of profession. But nevertheless, these inmates are very smart. Don't underestimate inmates because you see them with a uniform on and you see those numbers printed on the back. That means nothing. Don't think you can't get got. And I think the problem with a lot of females is that we figure we already got an advantage just based on our authority. We think we can't get got. We think we're so smart and we're so hip to the game that, you know, we can't be influenced, we can't be manipulated. But if you have the issues that I mentioned earlier, the low self-esteem, you love attention from men, you don't have a man of your own, you're lonely, you're not in a happy space in your life, it does not take much for these criminals to infiltrate. Everything starts with conversation. For her to get to this place, to where she went this far, and honestly, it took them 11 days to catch them. So, I mean, she planned it out pretty good. Had plenty of money. They had all of these wigs. She planned it out pretty good. You know, and surprisingly, he went along with the program because let me tell you something. A lot of these inmates so dirty. If you plan an escape for them, I mean, with them, you know, some of them so dirty, they'll blow the whistle on you. You know what I'm saying? Just to get you fired. You know, so surprisingly, he wanted to get out so bad, and also to where he held it down because some of them, they'll sit up there and plan stuff with you and let you plan things, and then they'll throw you up under the bus. They'll report you to your sergeant, your lieutenant. You know, say, hey, whoop de woo, I got some information to give y'all. I want to get some time off of my sentence. I got some information about this officer, but what's in it for me? Some of them would do stuff like that, but in this instance, he knew he was never getting out. You know, he had a long sentence. He had been sentenced. He didn't have no little bit of time, but yeah, he was serving a 75-year sentence. Okay, so yeah, he knew he wasn't getting out. What the hell he had to lose? She had more to lose than he did. So that's just the bottom line. Nevertheless, again, I don't recommend a woman with these type of issues to get involved in corrections because you're going to constantly be around men, and they're going to tell you things you want to hear. They know how to get in your blood pores. You know, if you lack common sense, if you lack self-esteem, they know your weaknesses. They'll be able to spot it. They'll be able to point it out. Again, me being in the field for 2 years, as I stated, these guys, they study you. They know everything about you. They study you, how you walk. They pay attention to everything. They can tell when you're having a bad day. They can tell when you feeling sad. They can tell when you're under pressure. They can pretty much read you. And what they do is they slowly groom you. They slowly groom you. Everything starts off with conversation. Good morning, how you doing? It starts off innocent. You don't catch it at first because it's innocent. It's friendly greetings in the beginning. But after a while, your shell starts coming down because you get comfortable. It'll go from, well, what do you do when you get off of work? What kind of food do you like? How's your family doing? This is their way of figuring out what type of family you have. How's your husband doing? I've had inmates ask me, how's my husband doing? I've had inmates ask me how my daughter's doing. Do they know what my husband does for a living? No. Do they know his name? No. Do they know his age? No. My daughter, do they know what she does for a living? No. Do they know what school she goes to? No. Whatever information I shared was very general. Nothing specific that they can Google, look up. And I made sure my daughter, just to be on the safe side, because inmates knew my last name. I know my daughter had a Facebook page, so I told her she needs to change her last name. Give herself another Elias is another name. I said change your last name because I know me and my daughter got similarities as far as looks, and I didn't want them to be able to pinpoint. Oh, okay, this so and so's daughter. Because again, inmates got access to internet. And that is what they do. Get your last name, and especially if you're in a small county, like my county is not really huge. So don't take much. They're smart. They'll be able to read in between the lines. My daughter has pictures of me, in her timeline on her Facebook page. So they'll be able to put the pieces together. So I made sure that she changed the name and stuff. And I definitely had my name changed. My name, my Facebook page is none of the name that they know me from the jail. And I made sure of that. I did not want them to have access to my personal life. Little things that officers need to be observant of. Now, Mrs. White, apparently she had been in a relationship for this man for a while. Now, I remember when the video went viral, when it showed how her and the inmate left the facility. Now, what was very disturbing to me, and I'm going to leave the link here, y'all. I'm going to leave the article and I'm going to leave the video, and I'll let y'all look at it. Facebook, I'm sorry, YouTube is so picky. You can't even put in clips of other videos. They demonetize them because I'm not a huge content creator making no revenue like that. I have to be very particular. I can't put clips in my videos, although I would love to do that because to me it's just more convenient. I don't want to have to send somebody somewhere and then y'all have to come back here, but that's just the way it is. So, but the video that went viral when it was showing him and her leaving the facility together, I found it very disturbing. Now, anybody that's an officer has been an officer would know, whenever you are leaving a facility with an inmate, for one, you should not be leaving by yourself. That was a flaw with that particular county jail, with that Lauderdale County jail. Very rarely, how does a female officer get to leave the facility with the male inmate and by herself? So something is really off about the policies and the procedures when transporting an inmate at that particular facility. That's a big no-no because anything can happen. In this case, it did. Now, fortunately, it wasn't an unexpected thing with this man, him and her. Good thing in the sense they did plan it, because had it not been planned, this man could probably kill her. This man could have raped her, did all kind of things to her had he not known her, had he viciously had the incentive of wanting to harm her. Only reason he did not harm her because evidently they was dealing with each other. So when she left the facility, only one officer, should be two officers, which they call escorts. It should be two, especially, matter of fact, being that he had a 75-year sentence, it should have been three escorts. It should have been three officers. She should have had two more officers with her escorting this guy out. Now, the other part that also did not sit well with me was when she was exiting outside the facility, the inmate was walking behind her. Big red flag that she was dealing with this man. And corrections, you are taught whenever you are transporting an inmate, whenever you are relocating an inmate, whether if it be from another jail to another jail, from another prison to another prison, from another cell to another cell, or you taking that inmate out of his jail so he can go see the nurse, you never let that inmate walk behind you. I don't care if he's shackled, because he could lift up his arms, unless they have the they have the they have the, because they have different type of cuffs, unless they have the cuffs that are connected to the feet. But in most cases, most of the time when inmates are escorted, they are escorted with regular cuffs and with shackles. If not shackles, they don't have shackles. Sometimes they're just cuffed from the front or the back, but most of the time they tell you to cuff them from the back. You rarely ever cuff them in the front, I guess, unless you're taking them to court or however. But every facility has their own protocol on when and when not to cuff, when to cuff them from the front, when to cuff them from the back. But the whole bottom line is, even if an inmate is wearing handcuffs, you never let that inmate walk behind you. Never, ever, ever, ever. Her being a officer of 4 years or more, she knew better than that. But again, because she was romantically involved, There was no protocol when it came to this inmate because she was dealing with him. Therefore, she felt comfortable with him because she was dealing with him. And the way he casually walked behind her like they was coming out of Walmart, that was a big red flag there. After they left out the facility, they both got in a squad car together. Again, it should have been two more escorts with her. It should have been somebody in the passenger side and someone in the back. 3 officers should have been there. Or if not sitting in the back with the inmate, because that's risky too, they should have had another officer riding behind the both of them in a separate squad car. This man has 75 years. You don't play with something like that. Whenever you're transporting an inmate that's has that much time, he's a high risk factor. He has nothing to lose. This man could get mad and snap, want to fight an officer because he don't want to go back, knowing, okay, I'm just going to court, but I know I'm going back to the jail, and he's rebelling because he don't want to go back to the jail. I mean, a lot of these inmates, they become miserable individuals when they're consistently incarcerated. You got to realize they're in the inside the majority of the day. They may get an hour or two out for some rec time to get some fresh air. And even then, it depends on how the facility is built, because the facility where I was, there was no outside. They had a little rec yard, but the rec yard was inside of a building, so they couldn't see no trees, they couldn't see no sky. It was like, leaving your cell and going outside into a bigger cell. And even though they had these big old windows, the windows were so high up, these guys couldn't look through the windows. They couldn't climb up through the windows. And they made it that way for a reason. So it's less chances of these inmates escaping, because a lot of them, they got a lot of time on their hands to think and plot and do all type of malicious stuff to try to escape. But a lot of times these inmates, when they get that privilege to get out of the jail, even if it means going to court, that's a moment for them to get some fresh air, to be exposed to the outside world, just to see a tree, things that me and you take advantage of on a daily basis. I'm sure a lot of y'all, because we're so busy working or we're so busy taking care of our family, very rarely do we just stop and look at the trees, stop and look at the birds, stop and just feel the cool breeze. But let me tell you something, when you've been incarcerated for a very long time, little things like that mean something to you. And being an officer, it starts to mean things to you as well. You got to realize you're in there 12 to 16 hours with all these jokers. So when your shift is finally over and you are relieved and you can go out and get some fresh air, it is a relief. It brings you some type of peace. Like, it's a reminder of how precious life is. Like, man, I can go home and be with my husband. I go home and be with my wife. I go home and see my baby, my children. We have that privilege when you are an officer, but these inmates, they don't have that. So any opportunity in which they can act out because they have that little room of 2 seconds of freedom, even with cuffs, just to be outside of that jail, some of them are opportunists. They're going to use it to their advantage. And if it means hurting officers, putting other officers in danger so they can not have to come back, knowing they're going to be there for the rest of their life, they'll do it. But this case was totally different. Officer Vicky White had a relationship with Casey White, which means they sat there and they planned this for a long time. This wasn't something they just decided to do out the blue. And evidently she caught feelings for him. Female officers have to be very mindful of separating personal from professional. And there's several ways a lot of female officers get caught up. They're fraternized and they done made themselves too comfortable. You've been associating with the same inmate too frequently, too often. That is how these affairs, this fraternizing, this inappropriate bonding with inmates come into play, because you're giving too much intimate time with a specific inmate. You constantly talking to this inmate. You constantly listening to just this inmate. You got 60, 70 other inmates in your unit. Why are you giving this one inmate so much of your time? For one, that's not wise because it becomes a distraction. It gives the other inmates room to violate and do all type of things because you're in this inmate's face too much. Or put it this way, this inmate is in your face too much. And I've always been mindful. I've always kept my conversation to a minimum when it comes to these guys. And I wasn't mean and nasty to them. I would joke with them. I mean, you can't work a job like that uptight where you're not going to talk to them. You're not going to say nothing. You're not going to laugh. You're not going to joke. You cannot work like that. And it'll be a lie for them to tell you you're not supposed to talk to inmates. You're not supposed to conversate with that. It is, come on, you human. But you got to read in between the lines and realize when things are getting out of hand. This inmate is in your face too much. Every time you come, he's the only inmate that's always at your desk for 15, 20, 30 minutes holding a conversation. To the point you got other inmates just standing there because they got to talk to you about important stuff. But they see this dude in your face so much, it's like, shh. I know so-and-so gonna talk her to death, so I might as well wait till later, blah, 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 before I ask the officer for this, and that, third. Talking to this inmate too much. He's always at your desk, or you're always to his cell. You start doing little favors for him. You know, inmates are supposed to only get one towel, one washcloth. He tries you and asks you to do little things that you know you really can't get in trouble for. Like, for instance, like I said, one towel, one washcloth. And he'll try you and say, hey, look out for me and get me one more washcloth, man. This one washcloth. It ain't working, man. I'm funny. I ain't like these other dudes in here. I ain't washing my ass and washing my face with one washcloth. Can you give me an extra washcloth? And it's harmless, right? You don't see nothing wrong with it. Yeah, sure, I got you. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. He lets you know how much he appreciates every time you do something for him. Now, again, that's not a rule in which you can get in trouble. You can get rolled up. Because you could explain that. Well, he told me he didn't have a washcloth. Because that's something inmates are entitled to have, a clean washcloth and a clean towel. All you could say, well, the washcloth he had was so dirty. And for hygiene purposes, I gave him an extra one. Because you collect laundry once a week, so I was going to get that extra towel back from him anyway, a washcloth. So you could justify that. But again, the inmate is smart. He ups the ante. Go from that. Now he's asking you to do things that is a minor violation, but not enough to get you terminated. Now he went from asking you to get extra stuff that is mandated or necessary, that they're obligated to. Now he's going to ask you to do things that you're not obligated to doing. Now it's commissary day. He wants to give one of his homeboys an extra bag of chips. Seems harmless, right? Hey, Officer T, Officer T. I just got my commissary today, man. So and so, my man, he ain't ate in 2-3 days, man. He hungry, man. I just want, you mind if I give him this bag of chips, man? That's all I want. I just want to give him a bag of chips. You're thinking it's harmless. Okay, I normally don't do this. Go ahead, you give him a bag of chips. Okay, now, slowly he's grooming you. He done already got you to give him an extra towel, washcloth or whatever. He got you to agree to giving his cellmate, one of his inmate friends, a bag of chips. And as an officer, we're not supposed to allow inmates to pass commissary. Now he's going to up the ante again. You done gave him 2 things. Now, keep in mind, in the midst of him giving you these 2 things, he's giving you sympathy stories. He made you feel compassion for him. Compassion for him with the rag, which is why you gave him an extra one. Compassion for his friend with the chips. That's why you let him give his friend the chips. Then next time, he'll probably want to pass commissary again, but this time he wants to give him 2-3 bags of chips. 2-3 of his homeboys. You ain't saw nothing wrong with him giving it to one homeboy. Now he got one or two other homeboys in the jail. You look out for him on that again, because you can't really get fired for something like that. I mean, officers do it all the time. That's not. I was when I didn't start that commissary thing, because once you start it, then you got to do it for all of them, and I just wasn't about to put myself in that position. But now he's up in the ante. He needs you to do a favor for him. Again, because y'all talk every day, y'all laugh, joke every day. You done did little small favors. Now, he needs you to contact somebody on the outside for him. He gives you the soft story. Hey, my daughter, I heard my daughter's in the hospital, and if you are a mother, you'll fall for men who have stories about their children. She's not feeling well, I can't really call her in here because I don't trust none of these guys. I don't want none of them calling my old lady for me. I don't want them calling my mama for me. If you don't mind, please, I'm gonna give you my mama number. Please check on her for me. I don't want no favors. I don't want you doing anything. I just want to make sure my daughter all right. I heard she in the hospital. I mean, you a mother. You got kids. You know what it's like. So imagine me being locked up and knowing your child is in the hospital. Now, he could be lying to you. This may not be none of the case. But this is to get you to break that code. Because once he gets you to break that code, he's already in there. Depending on the psyche of the officer, you got low self-esteem, see nothing wrong with it. Look, normally I don't do this. I'll call and I'll check. And you do that because you think you're playing it safe. You think because you're not doing it inside the jail, they can't catch you. So you go and you make that call. Hey, I'm so and so and so. But you really shouldn't even say you work at the jail, but say I'm a friend, calling, make sure so and so told me to call and make sure his daughter was okay. You talk to mama or whatever. Yeah, she's fine, she's this, she's that, blah blah blah. Or she could say, I don't know what he's talking about because he don't even have a daughter. Okay, so at this point, you go back to the jail. He's gonna ask you because he's been waiting on that. These inmates, whenever they give you an assignment, they wait on you to follow through. They wait on you to follow through. So when you come back into that unit, they're going to look for you. Hey, did you call? Did you so and so? Yeah, whoop de whoop, I called this and that. Well, what did they say? Well, they said so and so, blah, blah, blah. Said your daughter's fine. Okay, man, I appreciate it, man. That's what I'm saying. You cool. You different from these other female officers. The rest of these other female officers, they stuck up. They act like they so bougie. They act like they don't want to look out for people. Now they got a badge, this and that. They're smelling themselves, blah, blah, blah. He's up here stroking your ego, making you feel like you more down. You got more compassion compared to other women. So this is how women get infiltrated. This is just an example. It's guys who have inmates who have done stuff way more worse than this. This is just a small story here, you know what I mean? But just to give you an example of how these females get infiltrated. Conversation, doing small favors. Now you tired of doing small favors. Or you done caught feelings where you keep doing small favors and adds up. I've seen female inmates who only work there for less than 6 months. And it's always young females I noticed that are under the age of 30. They get them a lot too. And it's these older women like Officer Vicky White, who don't have a husband, who don't have children, who don't really have nothing to lose other than her job. She don't have a family or a male companion that's been with her for years and around all of these men. It starts to wither and tear her self-esteem. Um, so you have these women, um, young and old, who lack attention. It's not just old women who hit the wall, gentlemen. It is also young women who didn't even get a chance to hit the wall, who got. Okay, so I had a young female happen at my facility. She was young. She just got into corrections. And I remember warning her, young lady, be careful. You're very pretty. Inmates are going to try you. And sure enough, somewhere she looked out for one, put money on his books. Now, I don't know how I started. I don't know how I added up. I sure would have loved to have a conversation with her. to find out how it all programmed itself, how it all started. But that's what she did. She put money on the books. Next thing you know, it got out of control. He went back running his mouth telling other inmates. She ended up put money on their books. Now it's getting out of control because see the demands done got too high. Once you start one, you got to keep doing for all. And this is the very reason why you cannot open Pandora's box. Once you open that box, you cannot close it. So that's what ended up happening. The young lady being inexperienced and not really understanding the cons of inmates and the manipulative tactics they utilize to manipulate officers into doing things that they know are outside of policy and procedure. And unfortunately, because she lacked experience with men and lacked experience with inmates, and being new to corrections, she was able to easily be conned, and that's what ended up happening. She looked out for one and did not understand that once she opened that box, it was going to get out of control. So nevertheless, she got caught up. Of course, they did an investigation because that's what they do when word gets to them. And you got to realize this is another thing as an officer that a lot of officers are not understanding. You have to realize when it comes to looking out for an inmate, um, it's a very dangerous situation. It's a bad situation because um, there's so many other elements that are involved that you cannot really protect yourself from. For instance, when you look out for the inmate, that inmate already has you in the palm of his hands now, okay? Because now the moment you don't want to do a favor, you don't want to look out, now he can report it to your authorities, report it to your sergeant, your lieutenant. And of course, if he has proof of it, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be smart. They're going to make sure they have proof because they want to have something hanging over your head. That way you can never come from up under them. You can't never just one day say, I'm tired of looking out. I'm tired. I done did enough favors. There's no, you basically, you put yourself in debt to them. And they keep enough evidence to where you stay in debt to them. Because again, inmates are smart. They're going to make sure they get so much out of you that if you try to back down or you try to back out, they got a lot that they can hold against you and use against you, and they will. So it's bad enough the inmate already has an advantage. Not only he does, the inmates he run his mouth to. Because you got to remember, these guys, they want what's called bragging rights, okay? Nothing strokes an inmate's ego more than a female officer that they got under their thumb doing all kind of shit for them, okay? So it really boosts their ego to the point they ain't smart enough to just keep it to themselves. That way they can keep reaping the benefits. No, they want to go run their mouth to the homies. They want to let their homies know because it's a badge of honor to get an officer to do some sucker shit. It's a badge of honor. So of course they're going to run their mouth to other inmates. So now you got not only the main inmate who you already opened the box with, you got his friends, his buddies, who he done ran his mouth to because he ain't smart enough to keep his goddamn mouth closed. Not understanding the more he run his mouth, the other inmates, they're going to talk and he's going to lose his connect because now he got other inmates jealous of him because he's able to get something out of this officer that they cannot get. So not only is an officer, you got it's not only the main inmate that's under your thumb. You're under his thumbnail. You're also under his buddies. Not only are you under the buddies' thumbnails, once they get a whiff of what you're doing, they're going to approach you. Hey, whoop de whoop. I already know you looking out for so and so and so. I already know you don't put money on his books. I already know, you know what I'm saying? You called us people, you called us one of his, friends, you know what I'm saying? And you got him to deliver a package. So I already know what you're doing for old boy. Now, I'm going to need you to do something for me. I'm going to need you to look out for me. Because if you don't, I'm going to report what you're doing for old boy. So you thinking, okay, well, you don't want to lose your job. You know what I'm saying? You did already look out for one guy. Now here comes another one. You know he going to blow the whistle because he told you he know what you're doing already. Now he's going to report it to another inmate. And it's a ball rolling down the hill getting bigger and bigger. Because inmates are greedy. They greedy. You can never pay them off. You get them 2 cookies, they're gonna go from 2 cookies to a whole roll of cookies. Now they want the whole bag. Not only that, you'll have other officers who may not like you, or other officers who brown nosing and want to get brownie points for reporting any information that you're putting out there. That they're receiving, because inmates do talk to other officers. Officers do talk to inmates. Believe it or not, there's no loyalty against officers and officers. I don't nobody believe that shit for a second. There's no loyalty. Okay, officers will screw other officers in the ass quicker than the inmate to do it. Okay, so you got other officers. They get in there, they're gonna report you because they're trying to make sergeant. They're trying to make lieutenant. They're trying to make, and it'll backfire on them eventually too. But in the meantime, they want to get brownie points, so they're going to report what's been told to them. See how the ball just keeps unraveling? And next thing you notice, you're called into the office by internal affairs. Now, officers get fired day in and day out for all kind of stuff. It don't have to be nothing major. Just bucking the system, being insubordinate, and not wanting to do what they tell you to do could get you fired. But let me tell you something, mess with an inmate, that'll get you arrested. Smuggling in contraband, bringing in items, that's going to get you arrested. Especially fraternizing with an inmate, you know, contacting them through emails, sending them letters. All that's fraternizing. You cannot do that. And it's a violation of oath, which means you will get arrested, not just terminated. You will get arrested. It will go on your post, and it will stain your law enforcement career forever. And that's just the bottom line with that. So, I can go on all day about all different tricks and scams, but I'll save that for another time. Vicky White, Officer Vicky White, she knew it was to come. She knew it was going to come, and that's why she took herself out. She wasn't about to deal with that. That's one thing. A criminal going to prison, but an officer going to prison, nah, that's not a good look. They will have to keep her in protective custody for the rest of her days. Once people get a whiff of her being an officer, she's not going to make it in prison. Other inmates find out you're not a criminal. Criminals respect criminals. Well, criminals don't respect us officers. And they don't respect former officers who have become criminals. Once you've been an officer, you will never be accepted, even as a criminal with other inmates. It's not going to happen. Now we have another situation that recently came up. Another female officer also helped I believe it was 3 inmates escape. They were juveniles, actually. They were juveniles. I actually got to find an article on that, because this just happened recently. And she's also a Caucasian female officer like Vicky White was. That's why I said it doesn't matter your color or your age, because she's younger than Officer Vicky White was, and she hasn't been in the game longer of corrections longer than Officer Vicky White. So another female jail guard has been accused of helping 3 male teenage inmates break out of a youth detention center in Louisiana. And I keep in mind they mostly consider young inmates as delinquents. They don't call juveniles inmates. They call them delinquents. To me, they just inmates. But technically speaking, in criminal justice terms, these are delinquents. But nevertheless, the incident occurred 2 weeks after an Alabama corrections officer helped a murder inmate escape, and the 2 lovers went missing in an 11-day hunt, ending with his capture and her shooting herself to death. Shortly before 7 a.m. on Saturday, the Red River Parish Sheriff Office received a call from Rare Youth Center about the 3 escapees. On coming day shift, employees discovered that 3 male juvenile residents, with help from a female WYC security guard, had escaped the juvenile detention facility approximately 4 hours earlier. The sheriff wrote, video surveillance footage showed that the guard, identified as Victoria Toon, age 21, took the 3 teens in orange jumpsuits in a white 2010 Pontiac G6 with the missing rear bumper in an unknown direction. The 3 inmates were being detained for felony crimes. Taiwan Lafitte, 17, for attempted first-degree murder. Navarre Lane, 15, for attempted second-degree murder, and Jeremiah Durham, 17, for armed robbery. Warrant was issued for Toon. In response to the sheriff's post, Facebook user Amberly Tilly wrote, for people who are close to Tori know that this is completely out of character for her. Instead of jumping to conclusions so quickly, give the authorities and the families who are involved enough time to gather all the facts. I grew up with her, so I am very confident when I say that this is very out of character for her. The comment, which several others agreed with, was similar to remarks about Vicky White. The Alabama jail boss who ran away with murder inmate Casey White. The convict was captured last Monday, and Vicky died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. On Sunday, shortly after midnight, all 4 suspects in Louisiana incident were taken into custody in Houston, Texas, after Toon's unoccupied vehicle was found at a motel parking lot. One of the suspects' relatives drove all 4 suspects back to the parking lot where the Houston police apprehended them. All suspects will be extradited back to Louisiana, where they will face additional charges reference the escape. So as y'all can see, y'all, it does not matter, white, black, young, or old, you can get got. And ironically, no one wants to believe that these ladies are capable of committing this type of behavior. So basically, juvenile officer Victoria Toon and 3 delinquents were all captured, and they were all discovered at a hotel together. Now, it does take a rocket scientist to know that evidently she was the one who paid for the hotel for all 4 of them, because they didn't have any money. They didn't have a dime on them. So not only she took it upon herself to help these 3 detainees escape a juvenile facility, she also was willing to pay for them to accommodate them while they were out on the run. You can't make this crap up. So they were discovered at the hotel. So they didn't get a chance to really, be on a run for a long, significant amount of time. And eventually they were going to get caught. I mean, unless you got big money, you can't aid and abet fugitives but so much and but so long. Unless you're making millions, where you can get them on a private jet and fly them to Dubai or something, or Venezuela. You don't have that kind of money. This is what you have resort to. You resort to having to still drive your same beat up looking car that you helped them escape, that you helped to aid helping them to escape in. And then you had to park at a hotel, which was probably only $40. She didn't have no money like that. My thing is, what people got to realize, you trying to help inmate escape. How far you think you're going to get? How far you think you're going to go? Y'all don't have no millions. Only way you can probably pull something like that off, you got to have millions, where you could fly them in a whole nother country in which, there's no probability of the laws finding you right away. If they do, it'll be months and years down the line. Y'all helping inmates escape, and y'all broke. Y'all ain't got the money. You don't have the financial means. You don't have the resources to help them really get away but so far. And it just wasn't smart on her behalf at all. But she's only 21 years old. white Caucasian females let these 3 black male juvenile detainees talk her into helping them escape. You know this was planned. And evidently, she was down by law. She didn't respect the law that she was working for, but she was down by law with helping these juvenile delinquents to escape the facility. So now she's going to have extensive charges, helping these inmates to flee the facility. And this is why I say this profession is not a profession for women that are weak, immature, childish, thirsty, attention starved, got daddy issues. If you got a fetish with inmates or a fetish with certain type of men, you know, you'll be surprised. A lot of these women who got all type of sick fetishes, they work in these type of places knowing these are the type of places that they're not mentally capable of being able to work for. But they will apply to these type of professions. And it's not just, like I mentioned earlier in my content, it's not just female officers. You got nurses, you got counselors who work in these facilities that's overly populated with men that are manipulative criminals, that are smooth talkers, smooth operators. They get themselves involved with these type of professions knowing they don't have the tenacity or the wisdom or the professionalism to be able to get involved in this type of career and not be manipulated. And there's several women that have done this. I got several stories that I can share with you, but I'm not going to time all into today's content because I know I'm going well over an hour. But Vicky White is a prime example of, you know, don't get in the kitchen if you can't handle the heat. When she really realized what she had done, I think at that moment in time during that pursuit, when all those police was coming after her, she knew right in her heart. She knew she needed to end her life because her life had already ended. And my thing is, you know, if you're going to get involved with an inmate, and I hate that I'm even saying this, but if you're going to get involved with an inmate, quit your profession. Just quit your profession. Or once you have got involved, quit your profession. Jump ship. And this does not mean if later on they find some shit, they can't come after you, but it's less chances of the embarrassment and humiliation if you jump ship before you start putting yourself way out there. At least when you're a civilian and you decide to come to the jail to visit an inmate or whatever, or you decide to take care of an inmate, at least it's better that you were a former officer doing it versus being a current officer and getting arrested for violation of oath. But yeah, this is my intake on this whole situation with Vicky White and Victoria Toon. These were women that were not strong enough for this type of profession. They did not have the strength to be able to not be manipulated, to not catch feeling for inmates. It's it's millions of women, thousands, who have gotten themselves in this situation. So the only thing I could say for both of these young ladies, both of these women, one, she took her life because she knew the pressure that she was going to have to face, and if you're not ready for that type of pressure, don't even get yourself in that situation. And for the young woman, Victoria Toon, she's going to be facing life in prison. She's going to have to deal with a whole lot of drawback because she was an officer. So when she gets incarcerated, unless the judge spares her, and only allows her to do a couple of years, and the rest is home supervised, um, supervised probation or whatever the case is. That stain, she's still gonna have to live with it. People gonna know her face. People gonna know what she did. It's gonna go on her post permanently. She can never get in law enforcement. Not only that, not even just law enforcement, jobs period. Even if she were to be a manager at a hotel, nobody's not going to trust her working for the company. A lot of times, it's not just law enforcement who does not want anything to do with you. It's the world in general. Because as officers, you're supposed to be a trusted. Most people look up to officers. I mean, not as in admiring officers, but when you have had some type of authority with the law and the fact that you violated that, it makes people look at you sideways like shit. If she'll do that as an officer, I sure can't trust her as a manager at my bank, or I can't trust her as a manager at my restaurant. So it's a bad look. No matter where she goes, even if she hardly gets any time, people going to remember her for that. You get what I'm saying? So, that's just something I don't think she understands. That's going to follow her for the rest of her life, because she's 21. She's still young and dumb, even though she's a grown woman. I ought to know better. I don't think she realizes the damage that this is going to really cause her, but she's going to find that out in the long run. So anyway, y'all, uh, uh, anything else I got to tell y'all before I shut it down? Don't forget, y'all, if y'all interested in buying cable, I got 9,000 channels for only $25 a month, which I am doing for $20 only today. So $9,000 worth of cable, that is free sports packages. That comes via ESPN, Red Zone, everything you could think of, all your sports, all the Lifetime, all the HBO, all the Stars, anything that you're paying for with regular cable bill is what I think probably 150, 200 a month. I can give you all of those channels plus more than your local cable provider. 9,000 channels for only $20 a month. But this special is only today. So inbox me today if you want your cable connected. You have to have a Fire Stick. Please make sure you have high-speed internet of 30 megabytes per second or higher. If you have any amount less than that, your streaming quality is going to be terrible, and I don't want you blaming my cable app for your cheap ass internet, okay? So you got to have the real internet. You got to have the real deal, y'all. You got to have that high speed. You got to invest in high speed internet for good streaming quality. I also sell hair oils for women. $10 a bottle. It has 18 herbs. I personally make this oil inside my home. This is not something packaged from another store. I put a lot of love, a lot of care into my hair product for hair oil. Also, I got beard oil for you guys. I specifically make beard oil for men. I make it out of my kitchen, out of my own home. So I'm putting my love and my time into these products. So if you guys are interested in the beard oil, inbox me as well. Before y'all leave, please hit that like button. So anyway, y'all, it is your girl, the diva and knowledge, Lady Mocha. Remember, I'm going to always pour you a cup of truth, and I'm going to always break you off a slice of knowledge. Y'all be blessed.